It's January 27th, 2021. And if you're anything like me, first, that's a scary thought. But secondly, you've been wasting perfectly productive days ripping and riding and skiing day in and day out. I've been on fire this season for skiing. It's felt so good to rip and ride all winter. My goodness, the snow in the east right now is off the charts. It's epic. Central and northern Vermont, it's deep powder days. In the White Mountains of New Hampshire, we have packed powder conditions. The Midwest has had perfect snowmaking temps. Utah is getting small refreshes. There are storms tracking into California as we broadcast tonight. Here in Montana, it might be low tide, but our snow is chalky and sweet. And any way you cut it, skiing and riding is fun. Hi, everybody. I'm Dan Egan, and welcome once again to Ski Talk right here at skitalk.com. Ski Talk, as you know by now, is all things winter. Our guests range from the legends of the sport to industry experts and skiers and riders like you from around the world. And of course, as always, we welcome your comments and questions. Just put them in the comment box right there on Facebook, and we'll bring them up during the show. Tonight, we have a special show. It's a show that's focused on avalanche awareness. With the current avalanche conditions in Europe and here in the States, we felt it was time to really focus in on this important topic. We have two guests that will be joining us tonight to talk about avalanches. But first, as always, we're joined by Phil and Tricia Puglisi, co-founders of SkiTalk.com, two of the hardest working people in the winter sports industry. Hey, Trish. Hey, Phil. How's it going?
Really good, Dan. I'm happy to be here this week. It's been great. We're getting a lot of snow in the Tahoe region, and we're excited.
I was really excited that you two went to my home ski area of Waterville Valley back east. And how was that experience?
That was great. Up until we started to get snow here, that was some of the best snow we've skied all season, and we've been around to a handful of places. It was pretty incredible. Fun little mountain.
No, it was a lot of fun being able to get back there, back to the East Coast. It's been a while since we're back. And funny, I've never skied New Hampshire before, even growing up on the East Coast. That was my first opportunity. But it was also really important for us to go back and to get on pretty much the only sanctioned demo in the country this year as far as the major demo. So that was really important to get on a lot of next year's gear, and a lot of stuff that we're going to be focusing on in the next couple of weeks, both on the site and also here on Ski Talk with you, Dan.
That must have been fun. You saw a lot of your old friends and got on some of the new product. I'm looking forward to hearing what it was like.
Oh, it was really good. Again, as you can see, there's actually some snow. We had some edge deep POW on the second day of testing. It was a lot of fun, and I'll tell you, Waterville Valley, what a nice setup it was for the event. So it was a lot of fun, and the manufacturers are very receptive. We got to see some brands that are based in the East. Spent some time with them, with Elan, Blizzard, Nordica, Fisher, Vocal. So it was really good. Barclay Rappaport made a special trip over from Mad River to spend some time with us and to get on some of the new Vocal product.
Can't wait to hear more about that. And Waterville Valley, of course, is legendary for freestyle skiing and host of many, many World Cups. Tomba won at Waterville Valley back in the day. As I said earlier tonight, we're talking about avalanches along with new equipment and, of course, all things winter as it's Ski Talk. But our guest tonight is Ken Scott. Ken is a lifelong ski industry professional. And last year, he survived an avalanche at Silver Mountain in Idaho, where he was buried for over 70 minutes below 6 to 7 feet of snow. Ken, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing pretty good, Dan. Thanks.
Yeah, it's nice
Happy to be here.
It's good to see you, man. Of course, we're out skiing with you today. That was a lot of fun here at Big Sky. And, we were just past the year anniversary of this avalanche. Tell us when and where the avalanche happened.
The avalanche happened in North Idaho, the panhandle of Idaho, at ski area called Silver Mountain on a designated run named 16 to 1.
And paint the picture for us. How big is Silver Mountain?
Silver Mountain's 5 lifts. It covers 2 different peaks. I'd say it's a mid-sized mountain.
And, in all the articles and everything I hear, there has not been a major avalanche at Silver Mountain for over 40 years. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's a pretty benign hill.
And so I imagine the day you were out there skiing, it might have been the furthest thing from your mind.
Absolutely. I mean, that's part of the reason a lot of the locals like Silver Mountain so much is it's pretty low. It typically very low avalanche risk.
Also joining us tonight is avalanche expert Henry Schniewind, who runs Henry's Avalanche Talks all over Europe. He's based in Val d'Isère, France. He's a good friend of mine. I ski with Henry every year in Val d'Isère. Henry Avalanche Talks is known as Hat. He gives these avalanche talks all over the UK, all over France, and he's been recognized by the French Avalanche Association of saving hundreds and hundreds of lives with his courses and how he builds awareness. And what I like about what Henry does is it's consumer friendly. It's not built for industry experts or other avalanche people. It's for skiers and riders just like you and me who need to hear this information of where we go and why, and how we make our choices on where we go. We pre-recorded a conversation with Henry, myself, and Ken about this accident in Silver Mountain. It's broken up into several segments. So tonight we're going to show you parts of that pre-recorded interview and then come back here to our panel. So let's kick that off with the first section of this interview with Henry, Ken, and myself. Always, Henry, and there's so much happening everywhere. I mean, it's a crazy season. Just bring us up to speed on what's happening in France specifically. Our ski area is open. What's the situation? I know they were going to open halfway through January. What's the status?
Well, no ski areas are open at the moment. Tonight they're going to review. The government is reviewing the possibility of opening up for the February school holidays. But the media over the last 3-4 days has been preparing us for that not to be likely because of the fact that the spreading of the virus has not come down to a point at which they consider it to be prudent to open up the ski areas for people to come in and ski here. And it's not necessarily so much. It's definitely the chance of spreading the virus, but it's also the fact that the hospitals, the intensive care units, and the emergency rooms are still really filled up to the max. And so, if you had a sort of a usual serious but usual common injury that could be treated well, like a concussion, it's not uncommon, and people recover from it. It could turn into a really dangerous situation right now because of the overcapacity of the emergency rooms and the intensive care units. That's the real problem.
Henry, also, like here in the West, Europe has a very weak snowpack this year. Bring us up to speed on that.
Yeah, well, it's an exceptional year as well due to this weak snowpack that apparently you all are experiencing, at least in the continental climates of the Rockies, and I'm not sure if it's the case as well, more towards out the coast, but certainly here in the northern French Alps and throughout and surrounding areas and much of the French Alps, there is a very weak snowpack due to what is referred to as a persistent weak layer. And the persistent weak layer is exactly what its title is. It's a weak layer that sets up earlier in the season and is persistent, stays there for a long time. Very weak layer. And then when new snow comes down on top of it, it creates a serious instability. And people get caught out because the new snow that's come down on top of it's great to ski on, but it's very unstable and can be very dangerous.
And how about skier compaction, Henry? With people are touring there in the Alps, but it's not the same amount of skier traffic that we normally see. Is that adding to the problem? That's
adding to the problem for sure. But you're right. Usually what happens is that from the openings of ski areas in early December, after thousands and thousands of passages over the classic off-piste runs, it makes it much more stable, and therefore you have a lot less serious accidents. So what's happening now is that people are going into familiar areas, even on the trails, pistes as they call them here, familiar areas, but it's not the same situation, and the situation is different, and that catches people out and has been known to catch people out in other areas similar areas where the human factors play a huge role in accidents.
So, Henry and I have been longtime friends. We started skiing with each other and against each other, racing in high school. And since then, as I said in his intro, he's gone on to create henrysavalanchetalk.com, which is an amazing site. I send everybody I work with to that site. But just to bring all of our viewers up to speed, let's show you the intro to Henry's video. Let's show you the intro to Henry's company, so you all get an idea of what it is that he does and promotes.
Henry's Avalanche Talk. Ride hard, ride safe.
I'm someone who's passionate about the mountains and skiing and deep snow. So my role is to make the subject of snow and avalanches and safety as fun and as practical as possible.
You got to go for the low-hanging fruit first thing in the morning. That's the easy stuff that you can access really quick and easy, and then you can get an idea of the stability of the snow, and then go from there. Then little by little go up into steeper slope angles if you feel the snow is stable.
Enter into our minds that there's been an exceedingly weak layer of snow that's developed, even under just a little bit of fresh snow, and bang, that slope comes down for the first time in 10 years, a slope we've been on thousands of times. And actually, in retrospect, we look back and think, oh, we should have known better because of the various different factors, a weak layer, a steep slope, new snow, wind loading the snow onto that slope.
Wow, that's really sets the stage for what we're experiencing here currently in the U.S. in particularly in Utah and Colorado and here in Montana. We're seeing avalanches in places where people normally ski. Phil, you have a big storm rolling in right now to Tahoe.
We do, and we just got in, depending on the resorts, they said anywhere from 20 to 36 inches in the past 24 hours, and we're expecting literally another 40 to 80 inches, depending on the resorts that we're going to talk to, and that are in this area. And I think we're going to see a tremendous amount of danger also, not only in the backcountries, but as we see inbounds too.
No doubt. And right at the end of Henry's video right there, he's talking about, a slope that haven't avalanched in 10 years. And in the case of your avalanche, Ken, we're talking about in 40 years, it had an avalanche. So set the stage for us. We're going to hear about it in the interview, but just what type of day was it for you when this avalanche hit?
It was a pretty typical powder day at Silver Mountain. I rode the gondola up to the mountain house and got my boots on. Rebecca and I saw each other in the basement, in the room where we get booted up, and went out the door. Didn't talk much. Headed to chair 2, skied a bunch of like Henry said, low-hanging fruit, and then skied a little bit of terrain on chair 3. Headed over to chair 4, and made one run on chair 4 before we took the right-hand turn over toward Wardner Peak.
Yeah, so that sets it up. Let's drop back in with our interview with Henry and Ken to hear more about this avalanche. Henry, nobody ever plans, as we know, to get caught in an avalanche or being buried. Just talk about, how common this is heading out onto the slope with a good friend on a powder day, expecting it just to be a day filled of great turns.
Yeah, well, that's I think one of the tragic sides, or the thing that makes avalanche accidents so tragic, is that it's often on a beautiful day, people having so much fun, and then when something like what happened to Ken happens, the exact opposite, just terror, sheer sadness, and ripping pain from just sheer enjoyment. And it's that contrast, I think, that's one of the shocking thing, and that's usually what happens. A lot of the times it's a beautiful, cold, crisp, sunny day, because that's that kind of the perfect powder conditions just after a storm, and then it goes from heaven to hell.
And Kenny, as we spoke about earlier, just reset. What happened as you skied out onto the slope? What did you experience? What did it feel like? And what were you skiing above?
Wardner Peak is a separate peak from the rest of the ski area, and it had been kept closed the entire season to that date. We rode chair 4 up, and our first ride up the chair, the rope was still up, meaning the area was closed. So we peeled off to the left and went and skied some other terrain that's accessed by chair 4. Got back to midway on chair 4, rode back up. The rope's down, meaning the Wardner Peak area had just been opened. And Rebecca said, "Shall we go?" "Yeah, let's go."
And then as you started to ski, Ken, describe what happened.
Rebecca reoriented from across the hill to down the hill. As soon as she did that, I was still across the hill. And as soon as she reoriented, the entire traverse started to move. And I was laid down on my side immediately. Moving down the hill, I mean, these are the first milliseconds. I looked to my right and I watched the slide propagate to the trees. I looked to my left. I watched it propagate to the nearest ridge. I then said to Rebecca, "Here we go. We're going for a ride." She said, "Hold on, stay on top."
And there was a train trap below. So
from the traverse to the terrain trap was roughly 500 feet that I traveled. That's what the Avalanche report says, is the first slide covered 500 vertical feet. I was about 200 feet from the bottom, from the terrain trap, and I saw the terrain trap coming. Because of my years of experience at Stevens Pass, Mission Ridge, doing avalanche work, it's drilled into your head that terrain traps equal death.
And Ken, can you just tell us what kind of a terrain trap? Because of course terrain traps can be cliffs, they can be trees, they can be holes. I'm guessing this is, and from reading the article, I know the answer, but I think it's good for the viewers to know. But you obviously are the one who has this etched in your mind. Can you describe what this terrain trap looked like?
So there's an actual bowl at the bottom of the hill, and I saw that coming. I realized that I was directly lined up with the terrain trap and going to go into it. And at that point, with the background that I have, I realized, okay, you're going into the terrain trap. There's only one variable, and that is how much snow is above you, how much snow is going to end up on top of you. And I came to rest in the terrain trap. The snow came over top of me. I was fully encased by that slide. I could see daylight, so I knew I was a shallow burial. You can't hear anything. I couldn't move. I had to really work at moving my right arm from the elbow and wrist to be able to clear the snow away from my face. And at that point, once I got the snow cleared, I could hear Rebecca screaming for me. And I yelled back multiple times.
It's difficult to recount something like this. It's only been what 10 months since it happened to you?
No, it's a year, just over a year.
The year anniversary, huh?
Yeah, it was a year, January 7th. So we're just past a year. So anyway, I made contact with Rebecca by yelling back and forth. I told her I'm okay, I'm fine, I'm all right. I held up my ski pole so she could see where I was at. And then I went into conservation mode. Breathe, relax. You don't know how long you're going to be here. You don't know what's going to happen next. Conserve your energy, relax. And I did yell to her. I don't know if she heard me or not, but I yelled, "Don't let anybody ski in above us and trigger a second slide." And it was not a long interval. And I heard the second slide release. I heard the crack. I heard it coming down the hill. And I then felt it in the snowpack, and then it was over top of me.
That time before the second slide, your pole was out of the snow. Is that right? Is that how Rebecca had spotted you?
That's all she could see was the top of my pole, or some portion of my pole.
And when and we, of course, we should say that a total of 7 people were affected here. 4 were injured, 3 passed. When the second avalanche hit, Ken, describe that.
The second slide, because I was fully encased in the first slide, the second slide took my sensation was that it was this giant slab that came over me as a sheet, almost a monolithic sensation. And then that monolith stopped moving and settled down on me.
You're talking easily over a ton of snow on top of you.
That's the conclusion I've come to. That easily over a ton, and more like 2.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
That's amazing. 2 tons of snow. And like when you have a storm like now rolling into Tahoe, it comes in feet, it comes in wet, it comes in heavy. And it doesn't take much to create 2 tons of snow. Phil, and Tricia, this year there's been a big boom in backcountry gear purchases. Just tell us about that. People are looking to get in the backcountry like crazy.
Customers that we have had, or we work occasionally at a shop, and the customers that we've had that have purchased alpine equipment over the past few years, all of a sudden last spring decided when resorts closed, it was time to go get backcountry gear. So we just saw a huge onslaught, and as most people know, it got crazy with the amount of new people out there, and many of whom were unprepared. And I kind of fear that with this storm coming in, we've had really marginal snow this year. People are really excited to get out, and when you have the forecasters not saying 3 to 4 inches, but 3 to 4 feet are dropping every so many hours, it is a really crazy danger, especially on top of this hard slab we have now and the marginal snow that we have now. This snow that we got, that we shoveled out of our own driveway, was actually really quite fluffy. So if we get a little bit of heavy stuff coming in with this next wave of this storm, if it's a little heavier on top of this fluffy stuff with a hard slab underneath, it is going to be scary.
And of course, Ken, you're skiing with a good friend of yours, and we should say this was all happening in bounds.
Yeah, we were within the ski area boundary, on a designated run. Not backcountry.
Not backcountry. I mean, and the term side country right now, I think, sort of minimizes all of that too. People are so quick to say they ski the side country. Maybe it's safer, but as we know, there's no boundaries when it comes to avalanches. Let's go back to this interview. I'm gripped by it. Henry, tell us about the averages of surviving, even being under a foot of snow.
Well, what I will, for simplicity's sake here, is that if you're under 2 meters of snow, your chances are which is like 6 feet of snow, your chances are next to none of surviving. So 3 meters, which is like 9 feet, it's so close to zero that a miracle. It's you need a miracle to happen.
And so, Ken, what do you think the miracle that took place? Just describe briefly what you're experiencing there and how you calmed yourself down to survive over 70 minutes.
I've got my hat, goggles, gloves, poles, skis. Everything's intact. There's no sign of me at the surface, no surface markers for anybody to clue on. The area had not been skied at all, so zero skier compaction.
No ski. That's interesting. No skier compaction, and then also no purging if they hadn't done control before that, or they hadn't ski cut it before.
Right.
Which is the case in the Alps right now, which is making it particularly dangerous in terms of what I've referred to before, in terms of being led astray by human factors. You're in a familiar place, familiar setting, but yet it's easy not to take into consideration that things have changed. And that familiar place actually is quite different than what you're used to. But
the other gentleman who survived for over an hour, tell us his name and how deep was he?
Bill Fuzek. And Bill was, I'm not sure how deep Bill was. He wasn't as deep as I was. I think he was like less than 6 feet. And Bill passed out almost right away. His experience and mine are vastly different.
And so, so as you look back on this, Ken, obviously, thank God you were found. They did dig you out. You are alive. Bill survived. Rebecca survived. All of that is amazing. What's your perspective now?
My perspective isn't don't go. But be aware, no matter where you are, you're on a mountain. The mountain and the snow know no boundaries. The rope line strung up around the boundary of a ski area is not a boundary for Avalanche. They don't know any bounds. And just because you're in bounds at a ski area, you need to always use your best judgment and not rely on others to provide your safety.
And Henry, as you hear this story for the first time, I know you and I have discussed this. You've been reading, you've read the reports, you've read the articles. What's your comments or questions to Kenny?
Well, one of the question that I prepared even before coming on this today was asking him how he felt about wearing beacons, transceivers, and even inbounds. And I'm going through a change of attitude and advice. My advice has been that it happens pretty regularly. These avalanches that come into open runs and things, post control avalanches after they've just opened a slope or a run. Of course, in Europe it's different because most places in Europe, once you go off the marked, groomed trails, you're in unsecured areas. But so even on this, relatively in terms of total surface area, even on the open runs, there has been accidents. Every few years, there's someone who's injured and killed in Europe, and people have asked me, and I said, look, it's so uncommon that making the investment in a transceiver just to ski on the trails, the marked and groomed trails, is overkill. And I said, maybe make sure that you have the Reco devices on. They have the dogs and things, but I'm starting to reconsider that position now, talking to Ken here, and because my advice in Europe is that the second you go off the secured runs, and even right next to the piste, as they call them over here, you have to take responsibility for yourself and for the people you're going off with, and that means right away transceiver, shovel, and probe as the essential kit, as the essential equipment, and so I need to rethink that, and I'm interested to hear again, throwing the ball back towards Ken and you too, Dan, what you guys are thinking as we're kind of coming up with our responses and conclusions on the trot here as we speak.
I've got Avalanche experience. I handed that experience over to another entity and put my experience to the side.
On this particular day when you got taken?
On any day.
Oh, okay.
On any day prior to this event.
Okay.
It's a powder day at a ski area.
Yeah.
I'm not in the backcountry. I'm not skinning up. I'm not out. I'm in. I'm in bounds.
Yeah.
I bought a lift ticket. There's a contract there. There's a perceived level of safety. That's as it should be.
Mm-hmm.
But we need, I feel, to change the culture, to change the thinking. As far as I'm concerned, I should be the poster child for Avalanche beacons. I mean, poster child is a person you don't want to be, right?
That's right.
You don't want to be that person. So they take them and use them as an example. That's me.
Yeah.
Well, it's amazing because you two, it's two of my closest friends, and Henry and I, of all the years we've been skiing together, and Henry's the first one to say, the differences even in our own approaches as professionals sometimes can be contradictory, even as we depart in the mornings after our guide meetings in Europe. But Henry's approach has educated me so much and sort of brought me back from the edge time and time again as I've stepped out onto really dangerous terrain. And of course, Ken, this experience of yours, I've been wearing my beacon every day, and and that sort of speaks to both of you, but also speaks to the current conditions. Because we're seeing so many slides. Just a week and a half ago, Utah, a father snowboarding was lost. Another one, I believe, recently after that, Colorado's had several. It's amazing. It's amazing when we think about this and the current conditions. And I have been wearing my beacon every day, Ken, since this. And I know, as a ski instructor, you're often teaching never evers. But have you now started to wear your beacon every day?
I do. Yeah. Doesn't matter whether I'm on the carpet or from morning to afternoon, from run to run, you don't know most of the time where you're going to end up. I mean, plans change. Things happen.
It's a good point, particularly here at Big Sky. You might be down ripping some groomers, and all of a sudden you find yourself up there on the peak. Phil and Trish, I'm wondering, how geared up are you guys for the current storm? Are you going to be wearing your beacons and probe and shovel with you?
Dan, in all honesty, and again, like Ken's saying, as far as being the poster child for this, I mean, we have industry professionals, people that spend, in many cases, hundreds of days on snow, dying in these avalanches. And I mean, we should be some of the most prepared people out there. We should know better, as Ken, even going out here and wearing it now. And I mean, we're just looking at each other saying, why aren't we? I mean, we ski at resorts that are very susceptible to this. And seeing what's happening, I mean, at Mount Rose in the chutes, and we've seen some fluff slides, which can be bad. And we see Mount Squaw was closed today on the top of the mountain so they could do their AVI prevention. But then you look back to might have been about 10 years ago at Jackson Hole when we lost some of probably the most educated avalanche people at an inbound slides. So we are susceptible as anybody else out there.
So now we need to go buy beacons.
Yeah,
absolutely. And the recent avalanche, that avalanche I think you're referring to, killed patrollers at Jackson.
Yeah.
And of course, this happens all the time. Our patrollers, we need to thank our patrollers. They're out there putting themselves in harm's way. Almost every day, trying to break, make it safer for all of us. And we have some great comments on Facebook, scary stuff, hired a guide and the guide made us wear beacons. And of course, that is the way it should be. I'm getting a private text here during the show that this is riveting, and it's riveting me even to revisit it. Let's go back to that interview. I want to show right now, Henry, it was a controlled avalanche, but the avalanche that let go in Teen, which really demonstrates just what we're talking about. One, the power of avalanches, and two, the current conditions in Europe and that are existing here in the West. Let's roll that Teen video.
Just to let you know, this avalanche, they hadn't seen it go this big, because when and Ken will confirm this. When you go out and you do an avalanche control route, you have specific places that most of the time you plant the charge. It kind of becomes part of the plan. And in fact, in France, they call it the PIDA, the plan de intervention of déclenchement d'avalanche. So avalanche release is the plan of intervention for avalanche release. And this one, I talked to the guys afterwards. They said it hadn't gone that big in 18 years.
Wow. It's massive. Let's take a look at it.
So that, for anyone who knows the area, that's Teen. That's right near the top of where the funicular goes up to the Grand Mont, and facing what they call the Col de la Laisse chairlift. That's where that chairlift is down that you can just see there.
I mean, Henry, that is massive amount of terrain being washed down into the base area of the base of that ski area, that ski lift.
Yeah. And it's going across the trail there too. You can't see it because it's not groomed. Of course, it's not, nothing is open at the moment. Then they show one here. That's a sympathetic avalanche right there. Sympathetic meaning like sort of yawning. One goes and then another, and then another one in the far distance is from a charge. Something we've skied a lot, and just where it pans over right now, you can just barely see the little smoke cloud, and we call that the slopes of the Col de la Laisse. You, Dan, will recognize that peak in the background is the Grand Sassière, which is right across from the Val d'Isère and Teen ski areas.
And we have skied in these spaces a lot, and it's just a massive amount of snow that's moving. And like you said, this was their planned route, Henry, but they didn't anticipate this. Why did it go so big?
Well, it went so big because of this persistent weak layer that's developed here, much like in North America, and the fact, the lack of skier compaction, but also they're not doing avalanche controls regularly. But they decided to do it on this day to purge it so that the next one around didn't get so big that it took out the whole chairlift there, which has been known to happen in the last 30, 40 years.
And Teen has been open. Have they been skiing up off the Grand Mont? Or?
Not off this side. It's been open because they have a special exemption from the closures so that elite athletes can train for World Cup, etc.
But not in this zone.
Not in this zone, but I don't know if you got the photo I sent you earlier on. There's another zone right from a chairlift that they do have open, that they're not allowing people to go in from the chairlift, a bit like in America, because they're really only supposed to be training. And there are multiple avalanches set off by people going up and down on this particular day. And I had a talk with the director of the ski patrol there, a guy named Fred Bunvey, who was shocked and really annoyed because the day before this there was a death in the Vallon de la Sache that we know very well. Dan. And I mean, it's great place, but you do it and you have to really think about it. Talking about, backing off from the edge. Monday would have been a day to back off from the edge. The day before that, actually 2 days before that, someone was killed back there. But yet on this particular day, there were 4 or 5 other significant avalanches, triggered accidental avalanches, because they were triggered by people right over big terrain traps. There's lots of holes that are around in the area called the Lognan, spelt Lognan, and that is in between Val-Claret and Teen-le-Lac. That gives you a perspective of where it is. And he's saying it's crazy because people, not only has someone been just killed a couple days ago, but there's signs of recent avalanche activity, and people are still going out there and right up above terrain traps, just like Ken described. And he said, I'm just amazed that we didn't lose 5 or 10 more people today. And this was just this past Monday, just a couple days ago.
So
and it's outrageous. Kenny, what's your question for Henry?
Well, a bit of a statement first, or an observation.
Yeah.
I was standing in line to load Ram Charger at Big Sky the other day, and directly behind me, the group behind me was having a conversation, and it went like this: if you go out in the backcountry, you better be prepared to be caught in a slide. There's no preparing to be caught in an avalanche. We don't prepare to survive an avalanche. We prepare to use our knowledge to avoid being in the avalanche.
I agree with you 100%, Ken. And that's why I've dedicated, a part of the last 30 years of my professional career to working in the area of prevention, and why our motto is safety is freedom, because it's not preparing to get caught and survive an avalanche. The freedom that is derived out of safety, applying risk reduction measures, is just that. It's out of prevention. And something I wanted to bring up, you brought up Tunnel Creek. It was the emphasis on human factors that lead to what's pretty well now accepted within the industry of avalanche safety. Is about 75 to 80% of all accidents really happen to people who, quote unquote, should have known better. They did know better. They had the training to be able to recognize at least 2, 3, 4, sometimes 5 danger or clues around them. Points that pointed to the danger, but there's not a lot of talk about why we are so susceptible to these human factors in the avalanche, in avalanche terrain. And to me, it's because nothing happens most of the time. Most of the time, when it's really unstable, nothing happens, even when it's really unstable. And so that leads us to, first of all, not take the whole thing as seriously as we should, like those guys behind you in the line. And the other thing it does is it makes us think that our past strategies are good because we haven't been caught, when we should be asking ourselves, are our past strategies, have we maybe just been lucky and we're not actually very good at what we're doing? And because I'll give you a number out there, what I've come to after looking at a lot of research and also my own observation is that I think in very general terms right now, the snow scientists might be scouring at me at this moment, but in general, unstable slopes, steep unstable slopes that should avalanche, if you go out onto them, like most people do without applying risk reduction measures, if you go out 1,000 times onto an unstable slope in general, you will trigger 2, maybe 3 avalanches that are big enough to kill you. And let's say it was 3, because that's probably closer to what the reality is. 2 of them you will not kill you because you'll be thrown out of it or you'll ski out of it, and then there'll be one that could possibly kill you. And I think it's that nothing happens most of the time. This lack of validity is what it's referred to in the industry, or lack of feedback from the environment is what makes us susceptible to these sort of human factors like familiarity or commitment. We're going to ski this slope because we hiked for 4 hours, or and just generally because this lack of events and feedback gets us complacent. And that's my opinion. Do you have any comments on that?
I can count countless times where I've, just thought I knew something special, or I triggered enough slough to ski it. And, you build confidence over time and over years, and you really just escape another one. And recently in the training I've been doing with people, we've been focused on how guiding your friends, your family, and experts is the hardest ones to guide. And that needs the most vigilance. And I know, Henry, you've seen that happen time and time again in France, where a guide and their friends have been slid.
Oh yeah, it happens. It's usually, like I said before, to people who quote unquote should have known better.
It's amazing, that point is so. We saw that recently in the avalanche that happened in Cook City in Montana about 2 weeks ago. It was a group of experts that were out there skinning. And what happens in that situation is when they go to one guide to sort of be the lead, there's other experts in the group that maybe feel a little anxious because they're not leading or they're not being heard. And it sort of escalates from there. Often when you're in a group of friends or people or other experts, you might be second guessed. So I know if I'm not leading and I see somebody go out there and I'm like, oh, I'm not going to go there, I'm going to go a different way. And now you have two different opportunities for accidents because you've split. It's so hard to guard and guide your friends and your family and experts because, the thing you have to remember when it comes to avalanches is the more you know, the more danger you are in. And that's just a fact. Once you start thinking, oh, I know, I got this, things, you start to get in trouble. We were guiding and skiing up in Alaska a few years back. And right before me and another guide were kicking the sloughs and setting the slope. And one guy was on his cell phone and we didn't know that. He was calling his wife. He was over the horizon. And when he skied up to me, I gave him the instructions to stay in the slide path. But he thought he knew better. And he went out into the uncut snow and triggered a slide above the rest of the clients. It can happen so fast. Ken, I think when you think about this now, what is your message? What are you telling people about their ski day and about these sort of accidents and how to remain vigilant?
Well, that's a hard question because like I said in the pre-recorded section, you don't want to tell people not to go. I mean, that's not the point, but you just have to think. You have to be prepared. Choose your friends wisely. Really be selective about who you're skiing with. That's a big one.
I know here, the one of the heroes of your story is your friend Rebecca. She really acted quickly. She was partially buried herself, but really she might be the one responsible for both you and Bill surviving.
Oh, no, there's absolutely no doubt. If I hadn't been with Rebecca that day, there's only a few other people that I think could have responded in the way that she did. Absolutely amazing response. And if it weren't for Rebecca, who was a partial burial after the first slide and a partial burial after the second slide, if it weren't for her being a partial burial both times, there would have been 3 more people that died that day. So it would have been a total of 6 people instead of 3.
Yeah, quite something. We just have a little bit of this interview to go before we come back to the panel. Let's check in on the last segment. And Henry, how can people learn more about what you're doing and get educated themselves by finding your material?
Well, you can come on to Henry's avalanchetalk.com. If you put Henry and Avalanche into your favorite search engine, it'll come straight up. Henry, Avalanche, skiing, off-piste. Because, of course, it's the off-piste and the skiing, the passion for that brought me into the Avalanche subject. It wasn't the other way around. I'm passionate, obviously, about the Avalanche subject because it's a great subject, and all of us will agree on that. But it really was the freedom of the mountains that drew me to the subject, and you know, the more you know about safety, and the more you're conscious of applying risk reduction measures, the freer you can be to push out into the backcountry and into the mountains. So henrysavalanchetalk.com. We've got Facebook, YouTube pages, and things like that to follow us on. One last thing I wanted to say about the poster child thing, in terms of Ken and the transceiver, is that the transceiver is the first bit, that's for you, but the shovel and probe is for your mate. And everybody's got to have that stuff. So if you're gonna have a transceiver, you got to go for the shovel and probe too, because it's of no use to your mate if they're if they're buried. And as you pointed out earlier in our talk this evening, Ken, the reason that people have so little chance of surviving under 6 feet of snow is because it takes so long to dig them out. And digging strategies that have been developed over the last, I'd say, 10 years or so have gotten so that we're pretty close to being able to get someone out under 6 feet of snow if digging strategies are applied.
It's an important conversation we're having tonight here on Ski Talk, and we're going to continue this conversation with Phil and the rest of our guests. Henry, thanks so much for taking the time to share all the information and helping Ken and myself out with this topic.
Thanks very much for having me, and great to meet you, Ken. And I admire your resilience in there. I think that your calm under that snow is a good chance it's what saved you. And I would have been panicking. I would have been hyperventilating, and I have a huge amount of admiration for you. And I've learned a lot. Again, just going back in this conversation, I'm changing my point of view on a number of things, especially this idea of wearing a transceiver and thus shovel and probe, even inbounds, especially on powder days.
Thanks so much, Henry. We'll see you soon.
Thanks,
I hope.
Guys. Thanks, Henry.
Cheers. Take it easy, everybody.
Well, there you have it. One of the foremost leading avalanche experts in Europe. And we've got a comment on Facebook that there recently was a slide up in New Hampshire. So this happens coast to coast. It doesn't really matter where it is. And when you have a year like this year where there's been early snow and then a long drought before you get more snow, you always have a weak layer. I think a lot of people don't understand that what happens to old snow is that the flakes get bigger. They expand, and then they stand up on edge. And then the new snow falls on top of that flake and it turns over and you have an avalanche. Very simple explanation for really a complicated topic, but that is what happens. And of course, when we're talking about skier compaction, we're talking about skiers packing that down and getting traffic over that terrain. Currently in Europe, with all the ski areas closed, there's not that normal traffic on these slopes. And here in the States and in the West, we just have a really big, weak layer of snow. And if you check in with the avalanche, centers in Utah, avalanche centers in the Rockies, in Colorado, and here in Montana, and of course, you're going to need them this weekend in California, they'll tell you where that weak layer is. They'll tell you how deep down it is. And what slope it's on, if it's on an east or west or north-facing slope, to really build your own awareness. You should start paying attention to these avalanches reports. The one thing about navigating, I'm a sailor, and I tell sailors this all the time. It's the time to start navigating is before you leave the dock. It's too late to start navigating when you're in the middle of the storm. And that's true with avalanches, backcountry as well. you should know really the prior 2 weeks weather before you go off into the terrain. You need to know the weather. You need to know the wind, what's been happening with the wind, and really pits. The one thing about digging a snow pit, of course, is so many people dig them, and then they think, well, okay, I dug my pit, and they continue on. We saw that in the Cook City Avalanche just a few weeks back. So as we head off into the weekend with a lot of great skiing out there, particularly in Tahoe, Phil and Trish, I know you're going to get out there and get some new powder. That's what it's all about. And maybe you'll stop in and get your beacons on the way up to the ski area.
Yeah, I think it's definitely going to be on our agenda again. We've got some of our sponsors definitely work with them, and I think there'll be a good opportunity for expanding this awareness. I think it's important.
It's definitely important. Ken, of course, so many people are grateful that you did survive the accident. And I know a lot about mountain accidents. I know they're not easy to get over. But what's it meant to you to come back into the mountains and be skiing every day?
Skiing is my life. You hear that all the time, but I really can't explain what it is for me. It's fantastic to be able to just be up in the morning and look at the peaks and the sun on the peaks, and to be able to go out. Doesn't matter where I'm skiing, what difficulty, whether we're doing tram laps today with Dan Egan, or on the lower mountain teaching people never ever's first timers how to ski. It just brings me such a great amount of joy.
Absolutely. And when I'm out in the mountains and I have a lot of energy around me and people wanting to ski this line and that line, I often ask the question, do you want a great moment or a great day? And that's a really good sort of test for how you want your day to go, to think about the longevity of our ski careers. The beautiful thing about sport, it's meant to enhance our life, not end it. I want to thank Ken and Henry and for joining us for this really important topic tonight. And of course, Phil and Trish will be back here in a couple of weeks. We're going to review all the new equipment and everything that's coming out. And then a few weeks down the road, we have our free ride show where we're going to have some big name free riders join us. Phil, what do you want to talk about? What's happening on the site these days?
Well, yeah, and again, this is still such an important topic, and a question actually, even Dan, I'll bring this back to you. We talked about beacons and such, and it can be simplified even to lower levels, wearing a helmet. I mean, we're not planning to get into an accident, not planning to hit something or getting hit. So I think even starting wearing a helmet. But one of the things that I've got a slight problem with this Avalanche is the glorification of out skiing in Avalanche that we're seeing in the ski movies. I think there is a level of irresponsibility from the industry in promoting this, and I think it's just plain dangerous.
There's no doubt about that. We've seen that really for, I want to say, the better part of 20 years now. Of course, with the growth of the ski industry in Alaska and the heli skiing, and of course the phenomenal footage and skiing that comes out of Alaska for well over 2 decades. This idea that they can outrun a slough and not be avalanched, and there's a reason why that's working in Alaska, and that's because of the terrain often isn't above a terrain trap. And so if and when, and it does happen, those pros get sloughed, and they do get hurt. If they're lucky, they're not over a cliff, or something worse, And of course, in Europe, you just don't see this idea at all. You don't see the straight running. You don't see outrunning avalanches because they're not sloughs, they're avalanches. And there's a difference. The slough, the moving snow on top of stable snow, is just snow that's falling, but not an entire slope cracking. But it's a tough thing. The market, the Red Bull generation, is hungry for this footage. It's hungry for the athletes to be superhuman. And we're not immune from it, even myself and all the crazy antics I did on straight skis back in the day. And I appreciate your comment on helmets. My response always is I needed a helmet in the 80s, but no, I do take that seriously. And of course, I think helmets, people should wear them if that's what they want to do. There's no doubt about it. And the safety equipment these days, when we head off into the hills, the helmet, the probe, the shovel, and of course the beacon, it's critical. You've done it again. You've tuned into Ski Talk right here on a Wednesday night. We're so happy that you did, Ken. It's an honor to have you on the show, my man. God bless you, and thanks for hanging out with us.
Really
Can I add one thing, please?
Of course, yes.
Shovel, probe, beacon. You have to know how to use your beacon. You got to train with it.
Yeah. Well, that's a fair point. And here at Big Sky, of course, we have beacon parks where you can go out and practice with your beacon. You should practice with your beacon with the members of your group. Turn them on, receive them, make sure they're all beeping all the time. It's not something just to be worn. It's a tool you need to use because when the pressure's on, things are different, of course. So we'll take all that into our weekend. We hope everybody out there has a great weekend. We'll see you back here in 2 weeks on Ski Talk, powered by Pug Ski at skitalk.com.